Hello, MavMind Collective, and welcome to another episode of the Hypnosales Show. Today, we're going to learn about how to work with a sales rep. So whether you've worked with sales reps your whole career like I have, or whether you are working with a sales rep for the first time, hopefully you'll get something out of these best practices that I've listed here. We're going to talk about these four main items that I always keep in mind when I'm working with any sales rep and any sales engagement with a prospect, or even with existing customers, like in maybe an upsell or an upgrade type of situation where you're helping the sales rep with an existing customer. And it's just the four things that I always think about, and it helps govern my decision process when I'm working with the sales rep. So if you're a sales rep also, hopefully you'll agree with these. And if there's anything I'm left out, please comment and include it below on this video in the platform that you're seeing, that you're watching this on. Leave a comment and let us know what I might have left out. But these are the four main ones that I typically go to when I'm thinking about it. The first one I have listed for those listening on the podcast is they're the boss. They are the boss, which means the sales rep you're working with, whoever it is, they are the boss at all times. You are merely supporting them in their effort to bring the client to the decision-making process and in closing the opportunity. Typically, once they've decided and they have a quote and they're negotiating, typically the more of the back office type roles like legal and sales operations and those type of folks, deal desk people, they're helping the rep close it. But up until that point, before they get the quote, typically the sales rep is involving many other roles, customer-facing roles, such as yours. Whether you're a pre-sale or post-sale type of role, there's a good chance you're going to get to work with a sales rep on an opportunity. And in those opportunities, you have to always remind yourself that they are the boss. You work for them. Whatever they say they need, you need to help them get what they need, because they're the ones that their neck is on the line. They're the ones that get in trouble if it doesn't pan out the way everyone expected to. They're the ones that are calling the number and setting expectations all the way up to the CEO in a lot of cases, not just the chief revenue officer or the VP of sales, but even the CEO is aware in some cases of what a sales rep is doing if the deal is big enough. So you always have to remember that they are taking the most risk, and they're at their most risk of losing their job even if they don't execute correctly in their role. So it's like, the risk is little, the reward is little. So the more risk they take, the more reward they make. And they're sticking their neck out the farther than yours or mine or anyone else's. So you always got to remember and keep it in mind that they're the boss. And even when they make a request of you and it's something you're not comfortable with or you're not sure of, you've got to decide how you're going to deal with that, because they're the boss. And if that's what they want, the boss gets what they want. So if it's not you, they'll go somewhere else and find it from somebody else. Or perhaps you can do like what I've done in a few cases. You can convince them that there's a different way to go about it. And that's a subject of a whole other video I'm going to create on how to negotiate with a rep. So that'll be later. This is all just about how to work with a rep successfully. So again, keeping in mind and reminding yourselves that they are the boss at all times, and you merely work for them and you're supporting them in their efforts and their decisions of what they want to do. Okay, so that's the first thing. You got to start there, and then you can progress to the second one here. I have written down strategic versus tactical. And this is because I've worked with many hundreds of reps over the years in my career, and I've learned that some are strategic or more strategic than others, and sometimes are more tactical than others. And then some are like in between. Some are strategic and tactical, and they can switch back and forth depending on the situation. But if they tend to have a preference towards being more strategic, then typically they're expecting you to be the tactical one that's doing the tactical tasks, the pieces that are going to lead up to the ultimate win or close of the opportunity. So they're going to expect you they're going to give you assignments. Hey, I need you to go work on this. Can you go find this answer for me? Hey, can you go do this for me or that for me and help me with this, help me with that? And they're giving you the things, but they have the strategy. They know the overall strategy. So if they're more strategic, then it's your job then to really figure out what their strategy is, or ask them to explain the strategy and help make it clear to you what the strategy is, So when you get requested to do something, you know where it fits. And you can feel comfortable then with adding value to that supportive effort that they're asking to do. That's very tactical. You know where it fits in the bigger picture. And then it's motivating for you to then work on that thing. That might be tedious, it might be hard, it might be something you're not sure of, but since you know the overall strategy, it can be inspiring and motivating for you if you understand it. So you want to seek that strategy out if they have it. Now, if they're more tactical, typically they're not as strategic, they're more tactical. They're doing tasks, but it may be kind of disjoint at times. Typically they kind of know what the tasks are going to be, and they still are able to win the deals and close the opportunities by being tactical. But in some cases what I found is if they're too much tactical and they're doing too many tactical things, and the only time I've really ever seen it is if they're more technical in nature, or if they were an SE, like a pre-sales engineer that became a sales rep and they're used to doing tactical things, or if they're just their preference just because of how they grew up and how they got into business and how they became a sales rep just was not the ways most people become sales reps. They approached it differently, so they tend to be more tactical and they may not be thinking strategically. So in those cases, typically I will find myself thinking more strategy, like, well, wait a minute, let's take a step back here and figure out what the strategy is. And I'll kind of ask them to come along with me and kind of, can we be a little bit more strategic? Because, you know, the ones that are more tactical typically are going to be asking a bunch of other people to be tactical with them. And if there's no strategy that's kind of known or kind of revealed, then everyone's a little confused and we're not sure, like, why are we doing this and how does this all going to, you know, how is this all equal to a congruent experience that we're going to have with the client or with the prospect as we go through the sales process. So you might need to help the reps that are not as strategic, to help them either come up with a strategy or help you come up with a strategy so where at least you can then understand where you fit and where these tasks and these tactical maneuvers fit in to win this war. Because you want to win the war, which is the overall deal, right? You want to win the war. You don't just want to win a battle here and there. And tactical tips typically is focusing on the battles or the different activities, but if there's no congruency in an overall strategy, then it can be potentially wasting time. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you get them to define a strategy or help them maybe offer a strategy that they could latch onto. And sometimes they'll latch onto your strategy and say, yeah, that sounds good, let's do that. And you can influence it a little bit more. Like I have, I've done that in many cases where we still win the deal, but I'm helping provide a strategy. So that's why I put both of these, because you want to make sure you know what kind of rep are you dealing with and what's their approach and how can you help in that way and supportively. The third one is I have written down here, number 3, help them discover. So the reason I put this down is because most reps are really good at discovery, but usually in the beginning phases. And as the sales progresses and the opportunity progresses down the sales process, typically towards the end, they get a little bit more exact and they're trying to close it down and they're no longer discovering anything anymore. But in the middle there, after they've done the discovery and then they're trying to close it once they get a quote out and they're trying to close the opportunity, in between is usually when they're asking you or I to help support them. And when we come into the deal and we're trying to help them, typically they're not discovering anymore. But you, as a supportive member of the team helping that rep, you have the capability and the option actually to go and continue to discover for them, to ask some more discovery questions, to help qualify more what the rep has already told you is what's going on. If they tell you what's going on, you can continue to qualify and help them by asking the same discovery questions, maybe some different discovery questions. Continue to ask the client and the prospect things to discover and reveal more things that's related to what's going on in the process, to where the rep can avoid making too many assumptions. Because what I've seen happen all too often is when the rep stops discovering, then if you're not helping discover, you're just going to go on based on the last assumptions made, and you're going to try to move towards closing the opportunity, and you might end up being unsuccessful in doing that because things will change or you didn't get enough information and the assumptions ended up being incorrect. So like I said before, you want to avoid assumptions. So if you're brought in to help, you should ask more questions and just continue to qualify, continue to discover, continue to figure things out on behalf of the rep. Do it for the rep, because the rep's probably not going to do it as much as you would like or they would like. And it's also kind of your job. If you're supporting them, you should be asking some more detailed questions about things. You should be qualifying a little bit more and in giving the feedback back to the rep and letting them know. I mean, they're the boss. You should let the boss know what's really going on. So join in, help discover, help them qualify, help them figure it out, and make sure that they know everything they need to know to close the deal and win the business, okay? And then the last one is brief, debrief, and critique. So this is doesn't happen very often, but when I work with sales reps, what I always do is I always see if I can, if it's possible, to have a meeting before the meeting with the client. I have a meeting, an internal meeting just with them and anyone else that's going to be on the call when we have this engagement call meeting with the client or prospect. I want to have a briefing meeting. I want them to brief me on what's going on, what's their strategy. That's where I figure out if their strategy or tactical, right? What have they discovered so far? What do they need me to do? How can I help? And figure out who's going to do what roles, who's going to ask what questions, what's the sequence going to be, what's the plan? What's the plan for this meeting? Before each meeting, I try to do that as much as I can if I'm able to. And then after each meeting, I want to have a debrief where we talk about what we discussed before and did we achieve all the things we wanted to achieve? Did we agree? Did get to all the agreements that we wanted to get to? Did we discover any new things? What was your hunch? What was my hunch? What did you take from that? The way they answered that, what did you think about that? Well, let me tell you what I thought about. So you're sharing back and forth your impressions and you're making sure that everything's congruent. There's nothing kind of incongruent about what happened in the meeting afterwards. And also I put critique here because it's also an opportunity. If you feel like the sales rep could have done something better, that's the time is to critique them and help them get better in the customer facing meetings. Because reps, that's their number one job, is customer facing and making sure that they're the best that they can be. So they're always, at least in my experience, reps are always appreciative if you can give them some constructive criticism, something that can help them to get better. And vice versa, you should be asking for it too. And just help each other get better in those meetings. And I've hardly ever worked with any sales rep that wasn't open to understanding a better way to do things. Typically, they're pretty humble. Typically, they're pretty open and they want to get better and they know they're not as good as they could always be. So they're looking for you to help them that way. So don't be afraid to critique. Don't be afraid to have debriefs and ask for those meetings before and after the actual meetings with the client, just with the rep only, just to make sure you're on the same page. Plus also team building. You want to get to know them, and if you're going to be working with them on things and they're the boss, it's not a bad idea to get to know the boss and understand what the boss likes or doesn't like. So that's my other secret tip, is understand what your boss likes and don't like, and make sure you provide those things they like and avoid doing the things they don't like. And the only way to do that is to have these brief and debrief meetings and really just team build with your rep, get to know them and become really a partner with them and make sure you're congruent with the way you operate together. That's the most important thing you could ever do with a rep, is learn how to operate in unison with them the way they like. Thank you for watching. I know you find value in these videos, didn't you? So if you, like me, are in a customer-facing role, I'm wondering if you want to watch another video now, all designed to help you get better at what you do every day. Or not. You don't have to watch another video if you don't want to.